Hi, friends. Here at Embodied Dietitian, our job really is to sometimes be the facilitator of opening the door through food and body, through the language of food and body, to be able to help our clients be more willing and ready to do the deeper work that's really some of the root of the food and body issues. So in the copy that we talked about in the email, I talked about when to refer to a therapist. Well, do that as soon as possible. If you're a coach, if you're a dietitian, even if you feel like a situation is cut and dry, always be kind of willing and ready to help that person get into the right situation for them and their circumstance. And that's where you have done your marketing work in your community, or even more globally, to know who is where and what they're good at. And that's a really important job as a non-diet, weight-inclusive dietitian and coach, is knowing people, because you and I can't handle every person's every little problem, nor should we, because if we're too expansive in what we're trying to do in a session with a client, you might not get anywhere because we're being too diffuse with our own energy. So going back to the idea of how to help navigate strong emotion in session. And the thing is, like, I think all of us need a good therapist at some point in our life, maybe for many years in our life, to grow capacity. And coming back to what our role is, I think one of the most valuable roles that we do as non-diet dietitians and coaches is provide this safe container. And it's not as much about what you say, but it's how you say it, when you say it, and knowing that some people need it to be said very directly because they can handle that, and some people, what you might think is a very small-ish thing, needs to be handled very tenderly, even in the tone of your voice, because some of our clients have a very small window of tolerance, and all that fancy word means is there's not much that their systems have the capacity to digest, without like bumping up into like threat or bumping down into threat. And so that's going to be one of our jobs, is to understand there's emotion there, whether they're expressing it directly or not through the food and body, and they probably are. And that usually comes out through food rules and body bashing and I feel fat and all the kind of things that I actually do discuss in my 12-week decoding and non-diet counseling skills course for coaches and dietitians. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But that our whole way of being is like, yeah, we do some didactic things. We teach about health at every size. You're going to teach about some principles of intuitive eating, whether formally or more like I do, just recognizing, to recover, you can't restrict. So I hardly ever use the word ditch dieting, but it's more about, it's pretty obvious from your food journals. It's pretty obvious from the mental obsession you're having that telling yourself you can't have something is creating this ripple effect in all areas of your life. So your emotional stability, your ability to know what you need to eat or what your body wants to eat, because it's so overshadowed with I'm so starving and I'm feeling so deprived physically and emotionally that I can't be grounded enough to even hear the subtle stuff of what I need. And so we're teaching all that, which is really important. The emotional piece is, if that's what's happening, can we hold space for them to see that truth and to not feel shamey? And that's the art of this work. And we're creating in that space healthy vulnerability. So I'm eliciting something like this truth, let's say. Here's a good example, and this is something I definitely teach in the decoding counseling skills course, is you look at somebody's food journals and they're saying that they're feeling really full, and I'm looking at their food, and coaches and dietitians can assess this and see like, I'm wondering what's going on that's feeling like so much, or feeling so heavy, or it's got you really revved up, because I hear you writing or even putting on your journal that it felt like that you were an 8, like really full. But the amount of food you ate isn't quite a match for that level of fullness. And I totally believe you that you're feeling full of something. And I'm wondering what that is, because I'm not quite sure it's the food. So here I am eliciting this question, but in a very non-judgmental way. And it's going to bring up their emotion. And the next step for you is to be able to like when they say, oh, no, no, it really was the food is too much. And that's maybe where, well, let's unpack that a little bit. What feels too much about it? And how much do you think this is? And how would you know? And what was the sensation? All of those questions done correctly and compassionately will help people really get to the sense of like all the different layers of defense and help them break down some of that, defensiveness around it's the food, it's the body, and more into some of that vulnerability, which is the emotion, which is you've been trying to help them get to. And then if it's food rule and body image related, you can go there and talk about. If it's something really different about like a sense of identity, what their place is in the world or in their family, that's stuff that you're going to need to be referring to the therapist. You know, if you already have a therapist on board, calling them up and say, hey, this is what is coming up through the food. Or if they don't have a therapist, saying in that moment, hey, you know, like you and I can do the food work, the body image work, the movement. You know, if you're somatically trained and you're watching this, you can talk to them about their window of tolerance and how you can help them settle their systems. That's something I teach as well. But if you're not doing that kind of work yet, it can just be simply, the food and body work, and then refer, let them know like, hey, I would love to be, I'm happy to provide this space for you to like feel the feels about this. However, I know that you're going to be really well served and all of this work more effectively and efficiently if you have a therapist on board who can help you directly with, I don't know where I fit in my family, let's say. So I hope this little video helps you to understand that like a lot of emotion is going to come up. It's not your job to like make people feel differently. It's more about, do I have the capacity to know and the skill to know like when to elicit something, when to push, when to hold back and just allow that to unfold. And when you start to unpack things, like we talked about in other videos, especially on some of the YouTube playlists I have for you, it's really important to recognize that you don't have to get stuck. It's more like just ask more questions. Like, when I said that, it seems like that brought up some sadness for you. You may be 100% sure that's what they felt, or you might be kind of just contacting what you think is happening. You could be wrong, and that's okay. We can always say, I could be wrong, or like, I'm sorry, I missed the mark with that one. And being willing to be really human and build this relationship. Again, like I've been talking about, this is what the deeper medicine is. So thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to talking to you in the next email. Take care. Bye for now.